How do I tell the difference between intuition and fear when both feel like me? To make it short, fear speaks in urgency. Intuition doesn't. That is the most immediate difference, even before you look at the content of the thought or emotion. Fear wants something to change right now. It tries to prevent a possible loss or defend a fragile inner image. Intuition, on the other hand, doesn't rush or bargain. It doesn't try to save anything. Just think of a time when you got offered a new job. Fear screams that you might fail or that you'll look foolish. It jumps ahead into imaginary futures. But intuition, if present at all, feels completely different. It's more like a continuous sense that something fits, even if it scares you. Or a looming sense that something doesn't fit, even if it looks perfect on paper. It just doesn't argue for its own correctness. Fear depends on maintaining a particular identity. It wants to protect the person you think you are. Intuition doesn't protect anything. It simply reveals what is already obvious. That's why intuition feels pure when it's noticed, while fear feels suffocating even when it sounds reasonable. So, next time, instead of trying to separate intuition from fear, notice the one who is aware of both. The moment you look at fear from that perspective, it loses its authority. It isn't you. When you're not trying to juggle internal narratives, intuition becomes clear automatically. Try it. Next time you feel like you have to decide something and the mind reacts like it usually does, take a moment. Feel the tone. Fear contracts. It feels like you're bracing for impact. Contrary to that, intuition feels open, even when the message is uncomfortable. You don't have to convince yourself it's correct. It doesn't demand certainty. You tell the difference by noticing the presence beneath both. Fear shows itself as noise, while intuition is the part that never raises its voice. How do I know if my desires are mine, or just things I've been conditioned to want? A desire that needs an audience immediately becomes suspicious. Anything that feels stronger when someone else is watching, or when you imagine getting praise for it, is almost always conditioning. It's built from expectations and the need to confirm an image of yourself. Just think of a time you feel compelled to start posting content online. If the desire feels powerful only when you picture people admiring you, or when you imagine gaining status, that desire isn't originating from you. It's more a reaction to an internal scoreboard you didn't build consciously. But if the same action feels natural even when no one would notice, then that's closer to a genuine impulse, because it doesn't rely on approval to stay alive. Conditioned desires usually have a proving quality. They try to close some imagined gap between who you are and who you believe you must become. In other words, they want to fix something. Real desires don't try to change or fix anything. They're just simple motions that feel ordinary and not tied to your value. The thing is, however, that you don't find the origin of a desire by digging into your past. No, sir. The only way to truly find it is by seeing how much self-image it has to support in the present. Conditioning always needs identity to survive. A genuine desire doesn't. When you notice that a particular want depends on reinforcing a certain version of yourself, you're looking at conditioning. When a desire doesn't ask you to defend an identity, you have something genuine. Imagine you are doing something without anyone knowing. Could be anything, really. But let's say you started your own YouTube channel. If the desire to continue doesn't stick because nobody knows about what you are doing, it wasn't yours. It was simply a performance waiting for a witness. But if it remains a desire even without a story attached, It's closer to what the moment actually calls for. Just remember, you don't discover authentic desire by searching for it, but rather because everything that isn't authentic falls apart when there's nothing left to impress. What if the feeling of being separate is just a habit my mind refuses to let go of? That's closer to the truth than you might realize. The sense of being a separate someone isn't some kind of new or extraordinary discovery. It's really just another familiar pattern the mind rehearses because it gives it something to manage. If there wouldn't be a defined me, the mind has nothing to defend. So it keeps producing the old sensation of being a divided self. It's automatic, not in any way meaningful. Think back to that one party where you didn't know anyone. Immediately, the sense of being separate spikes like your glucose level when eating a Snickers. You become aware of how you must look like to other people, so you adjust your posture and how you sound to change how you're being perceived. In reality, nothing changed. Only the mind revived its usual habit of narrating a vulnerable character moving through a world filled with potential judgment. It's basically muscle memory. This habit stays alive because you rarely pause to question who actually claims to feel separate. Reacting to the feeling as if it's describing a fact instead of noticing that it's only describing a mental reflex is a very human thing to do. The mind keeps playing the role out of familiarity, the way a song stays stuck in your head long after you've stopped caring about it. That separation you feel gets weaker the moment you stop trying to get rid of it. The habit survives only through resistance. Notice the sensation of being a divided individual. What does it feel like? Without trying to fix it, something becomes very obvious. The awareness noticing the habit has no separation in it at all. It doesn't have some story about a personal self. The habit appears inside something that isn't touched by it. Try this in real time. When the sense of separateness appears, don't analyze it, don't argue with it. Just notice that the one who sees it doesn't feel divided. That alone breaks the spell. The mind will repeat the habit again, but the impact will fade. You're no longer fooled by it. Separation loses its force not by defeating it, but by recognizing that it never defined the one who is aware of it. Why does it feel easier to believe something is wrong with me than to accept I might already be complete? Because the idea that something is wrong with you gives the mind a job. If you were already complete, the mind would lose its central purpose. A mind without a problem is like an engine without fuel. It doesn't know what to do with itself. So it gravitates toward the belief that you're flawed. The belief gives it continuity. Imagine you receive a compliment. Instead of letting it be, the mind immediately produces doubts. Maybe they didn't mean it, or you could have done better. Or maybe whoever is giving you the compliment is just comparing you to someone else. So why is that so? The compliment challenges the idea that something is lacking, and the mind quickly restores that old narrative because it knows how to operate inside it. Being incomplete feels safer because the story is well practiced. Doesn't make it true though. The belief something is wrong with me survives because it keeps you chasing a future moment where you will finally feel whole. That chase distracts you from noticing the reality that you don't actually feel incomplete until a thought tells you so. This sense of incompleteness comes from a thought that claims ownership over your experience. When you look directly at the moment before the thought appears, nothing is actually missing. You are simply present. The moment the mind claims the experience by saying this should be better or more impressive, completeness turns into a task. Try seeing it without argument. When the belief "something is wrong with me" shows up, don't fight it. Just notice that the sense of being present existed a moment before the belief appeared, and that it hasn't changed. The belief is trying to explain you to yourself. The explanation is the problem, not the one who hears it. It feels easier to believe in your flaw because the mind depends on conflict for its identity. The recognition of your completeness doesn't give the mind anything to hold. It gives you something better, a direct sense of being that doesn't need repair. Why does having endless choices make me feel more trapped instead of free? When you face a long list of options, the mind starts building different versions of you, and each one of these and their existence depends on you choosing correctly. That's where that feeling of being overwhelmed comes from. The choice itself is easy. The imagined self that must be protected is what feels heavy. Think of something familiar. It is Sunday evening, and even though you normally cook your food yourself, today you just don't feel like it. So you open your food delivery app of choice to pick dinner. Instead of simply enjoying the abundance of options to pick from, you start comparing menus and prices. Who has the best and most reviews? How healthy is the food? What fits your budget? And so on. In that moment, a simple decision becomes a performance. And the discomfort you feel? Well, the food isn't the cause, and neither is the amount of choices. The real culprit is the belief that the choice defines you. People call this decision fatigue, but it really is just identity fatigue. The idea of being a fixed someone makes every option feel like a test. If you pick this, you are this kind of person. But if you pick that, you become something else entirely. The more the mind tries to secure the right identity, the more trapped you feel. We tend to forget that freedom isn't in the number of choices, but rather in noticing that none of them create you. That constant pressure disappears when you see that making a choice, whatever it may be, doesn't define the real you. All it does is reveal a temporary preference you've had in that moment in time. And when you see that, and you stop trying to protect a character that isn't really you, the endless options stop to seem so daunting. So, the next time when the mind starts calculating what a choice says about your life, take a literal step back and pause. Feel the sense of being the one who notices the movement. Realize that you're the unbothered presence in which the decision appears. Once this becomes clear, choices become functional movements instead of statements about you. When nothing is at risk, choosing becomes light. After all, you're not picking a self, you're picking dinner. If what was said here resonated in any way, you may feel like looking a little deeper. We've put together a digital retreat that is built to bring you into direct contact with the clarity that's already here, through carefully designed meditations, teachings, and simple pointers that remove the unnecessary effort around this whole subject. It's made for people who want something real. We also have a Christmas promotion running right now. It gives you access to the retreat at a special holiday offer, which makes it easier to step into this without hesitation. If that sounds like something worth exploring, the link is in the description. And if you prefer to listen to our videos without music, you can find them on Patreon.